Things look grim. 5 years ago, I caught my toddler saying this over and over again.
Things look grim. Things look grim.
That's your assessment of the current situation? Things look grim?
Yeah?
Oh dear.
And I worried that he might have learned that phrase from me. Because if you rewind back to May and June of 2020, things looked pretty darn grim. I had recently quit my cushy corporate content marketing job to launch an agency that I hoped would produce podcasts for corporate clients, just in time for the COVID pandemic to bring businesses grinding to a halt and discretionary marketing budgets to disappear. I know it was for a lot of us, but I could look back at it now and say that was definitely a low point for me. I was feeling pretty cooked until we spoke to Joe Pulizzi, the founder of Content Marketing Institute.
If the Great Recession didn't happen, I don't know if Content Marketing Institute would have existed. I think the other media companies, if they would have been financially sound, would have picked up on it. Nobody was investing in that area, and we were able to take a leadership position.
I didn't know it at the time, but Joe's story about pivoting into content marketing during a moment of extreme uncertainty and building a multi-million-dollar brand out of it really kept me going as a content marketer and entrepreneur. Changed my trajectory even. And today, I'm hoping that it'll do the same for you. Because here we are 5 years later, and it's not a super virus this time, but it's a trade war, it's artificial intelligence, political upheaval, it's uncertainty still. And it's Joe's exact same approach that's gonna get us through it. I'm Dusty Weiss. From PodCamp Media, this is Lead Balloon, a podcast about irresistible tales from the world of PR and marketing, told by the well-meaning communications professionals who live them. Thank you for tuning in. I have been thinking about this conversation a lot because things have gotten so grim again lately. For us here at PodCamp Media, Q4 of 24, Q1 of this year, I was a little bit uncertain about whether enough of our clients were going to re-up. Now, thankfully, they all have. I think, like a lot of us, they were just waiting for the sky to fall and eventually got tired of waiting for the sky to fall. So they've all re-upped, and we're on our way to a good, perhaps even a great 2025. But I know that's not the case for everyone right now. I've been hearing from a lot of folks who are out of work or they're stuck in a situation that they need to leave, but they don't have anywhere to go. I've got other folks at big companies, and they're having a hard time making the case for why they should keep their content marketing budget right now. And I didn't really have anywhere to point any of these folks until I remembered my conversation with Joe Pulizzi in episode 8. Now, this happened less than a year after I launched PodCamp Media. Lead Balloon was taking off, but the podcast production part of the business was not. My anchor client had chosen not to re-sign. I had brought in a new client who didn't quite replace that revenue, and I had turned a slight profit, but I had not even paid myself yet. And my wife and I had brought home our second child just a couple of months prior, a beautiful, incredible baby girl. And then hard COVID lockdown. No prospects, no opportunities, just this podcast. And an interview with Joe Pulizzi, the guy who popularized the term content marketing, telling me that he had been through the exact same thing during the 2008 recession. So a few caveats here. First, this was a time before I had even the most basic podcast studio to work in. I was sitting in my basement, the basement of my house. And I'm going to post the video of the conversation to our YouTube for the first time, not because it's good watching or even watchable for the most part, only because it makes clear just how far we've come. The video quality is rough because there weren't any great services providing video podcast recording in spring of 2020. And oh yeah, the internet was clogged by people trying to work from home or do schooling from home. And so Joe and I actually just kept getting cut off during the course of this interview. He was very patient and very kind with me about that. Nonetheless, Joe Pulizzi, host of This Old Marketing podcast, best-selling author, He took his time to share his content marketing entrepreneurial story with me, bedraggled and sitting in my basement.
So I'd always wanted to start my own business. Ever since I was a teenager, I had a little notebook of all my business ideas. Was lucky enough to get into Penton Media. For those people that don't know Penton Media, so this is 2000. I started at Penton Media, at the time, one of the largest business-to-business media companies on the planet. And I started in a little division that nobody cared about called Penton Custom Media. And I didn't even know what custom media was at that point. But what we learned was, we did not do traditional advertising. We did not do traditional sponsorships like everyone else in Penton did for Penton's magazines, mostly trade magazines that you'd never hear of unless you were in design engineering or heating and air conditioning or something like that. We did the magazines and the sponsorships for those. But what Penton Custom Media did, we would come in and we would help them with their own stories. How do I talk more efficiently to my customers? How do I help them with their own needs instead of just talking about my products and services all the time? Those look like custom magazines, print newsletters, those types of things. And then later on into webinars and podcasts and social media. But all that time while I'm learning this art of custom publishing, custom media, it wasn't called content marketing at the time. I had this itch to start something. And back in 2006, I'm talking with my wife again about another business idea. And my wife says, look, either you go start this business or you stop talking about it. And she just was she was done with me. And I said, okay. And we talked about it. And I said, so this is the end of 2006. And I said, okay, by the end of March 2007, I'll make a decision on either I'm going to stay at Penton or get another job or go start my business. Well, on the last day of March 2007 is when I decided formally left Penton, and on April 2nd, 2007 started what ultimately became Content Marketing Institute. Now it's funny when you're talking about recession and you know this, that exact day is when First Century Bank, I think it was, went bankrupt and they were a subprime. That is the exact day when we started the company.
The first domino to fall. Yeah.
That was the first one to fall. And then, of course, if you know your history, March of 2008 was Bear Stearns, on and on and on. And then we were deep into the Great Recession while launching this business. While you're going through it, it's horrible. So I know what people are going through right now. If you're in a business of any size right now, we're all sweating it. Everybody's sweating it. But also at the same time, now I realize, probably couldn't have been a better time to launch the business, because while everyone else was battening down the hatches, we were investing in trying to build an audience.
Yeah, so let's talk about that pivot there for a second. When you launched your company in the spring of 2007, you called it Jump to 42, and you had a business model that was very different from how it ended up. What were you doing at the time?
So April 2nd was my first blog post. It was called The Content Marketing Revolution, but the name of the company was going to be Jump to 42, which that's a whole nother conversation about why call it that. I thought it was the coolest Web 2.0 name. So
that's an old Douglas Adams reference,
exactly,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're exactly right. 42 and Junta or junta means a lot of things. It means a military coup, but it also means a meeting. So meeting and 42, the meaning of life coming together. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. But basically the business model that we launched into outside of starting this blog and trying to build an audience, we were basically trying to become the eHarmony for content marketing is the best way to describe it. So we had a database of agencies and journalists who knew how to create content, and we were matching them up with marketers and brands that needed content or wanted to do print magazines or newsletters or article marketing or whatever the case was, and we would match them up.
And you were meeting with early success doing that.
We did. We launched it in June of 2008, and we were lucky that we started to land some pretty big deals as we were going. I mean, there were a couple $1 million deals that went through the system. Now, we didn't get paid on the $1 million deals. The way that it worked is an agency would spend about $5,000 a year to be in the system, and then we would send them leads. Like it or not, that was the business model.
And it worked. For the time being, at least, Joe and his wife Pam were able to sign enough clients to keep the lights on and get their entrepreneurial legs under them. But then, well,
the Dow tumbled more than 500 points.
The American financial system is rocked to its foundation.
This was the day we were afraid to wake up to: the bankruptcy of one major Wall Street investment bank, the shotgun wedding of another.
And they are losing their jobs, and these firms are going to go out of business, and he's nuts. They're nuts. They know nothing.
Those of us elder millennials may be a bit too accustomed to the sound of the financial markets crumbling. We heard it earlier this year, we heard it during the COVID lockdown, we heard it after 9/11, and yeah, like Joe Pulizzi, we heard it in 2008 as well. In that moment, Junta 42's clients started dropping like flies. The bills started piling up, and Joe Pulizzi had to take a long, hard look at why his business model wasn't working.
So there's two things. First of all, agencies, and this you learn this hindsight, agencies never spend money on marketing anyways.
Right.
So never start a business when you're targeting agencies. Just don't do it. So first of all, they never spend money. Second of all, they had no money because most of them were just struggling to stay alive so they could make it to 2010. Who knew how long this thing was going to last? And by September, we were like, okay, people are not, even though the system's working, people are not signing up. They don't have any money. I don't have any people. I mean, I got brands signing up and they want to be matched up with agencies, but the agencies won't even be in the system because they can't afford $500 a month to do it.
So here you've got this compelling business plan, and it was so compelling that you staked your family's fortune on it. You and your wife were both partners on this business venture, and you're faced with the decision of whether or not to abandon your original plan. How did you go about weighing that decision to stay the course or not, and what eventually compelled you to change gears?
Yeah. So here's the horrible and great story at the same time, right? So it's September of 2009. We need money to keep the lights on. I mean, we need money to keep this thing in business. And one of our best case studies hadn't renewed in the system. The agency did not renew. It did not sit on the automatic renewal for the credit card. And I'm like, oh, there must be some mistake because we just delivered a multi-million-dollar account to this agency. So I get the CEO on the phone, call her up, and I say, I'll just call her Judy. Hey, Judy, I see you're not signed up. Must be some kind of mistake. Can I get your updated credit card and we'll get you up in the system so that we keep things going? And I needed that $5,000 badly. And she said, no, Joe, we're not going to re-up to the $5,000 deal, even though we just landed you $1 million project. She says, I think we can get better ROI somewhere else. And I'm floored. I'm like, you can get better than 1,000% ROI? I said, if you can get better than that from an ROI perspective, tell me what it is and I'm going to sign up for it. Well, of course, she's just using an excuse. I don't know if she didn't have the money or what the deal was, but she said, no, Joe, I'm not going to re-up in the system, hangs up the phone. And I'm devastated. I hit my low point because here it is, our best case study, and I can't even resell them into the system. I remember this till I hang up the phone and I go outside into our backyard and I'm just feeling completely sorry for myself. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? I left executive position at a publishing company. I was making 6 figures plus. Things were great. And I put everything on the line for nothing. And so the next 2 weeks, I'm thinking, all right, what am I going to do? Am I going to go find a job somewhere? I don't think this business model can continue. And nobody really knew this at the time, but I was starting to check in on some people, like, any jobs available, what's going on? Because I really didn't think I thought the business model was dead. Like, there's no way that if I can't land the best deal that I have, then it's not going to happen. So for whatever reason, so it was about 2 weeks later. So again, September, October timeframe, 2009. So for whatever reason, I'm in my email inbox and I'm looking at feedback from our blog subscribers. So luckily from 2007 to this point in 2009, we had been blogging on a regular basis. When I say we, mostly me, 3 to 4 times a week, blogging about how-to practices in content marketing, targeting marketing professionals. And we'd built up an audience of 5,000, 10,000 people on a regular basis. The email list was starting to grow, and I would get a lot of feedback. And I started going through all this feedback for some reason, probably because I was just in depression. And they're starting to say, Joe, can you do any consulting? We have a large enterprise. Can you come in and do some consulting? Joe, here's a speaking event we'd like you to speak at. Joe, can you do that? Joe, are there any events out there for content marketers? I'd like to send my team to these events. So all these things are coming up in front of me. And I'm like, oh my God, here I am. I'm trying to sell this thing, this eHarmony for content marketing thing that nobody wants to buy, that nobody wants to do anything with. And my audience is telling me what they're willing to buy. They're emailing it to me. And for a year and a half, I was totally ignoring it. Like, oh, that's nice. Yeah, I wish there was an event that people could go to. Yeah, I wish there was an informational resource for content marketing where people could really get an education on this thing. And then it hit me like a lightning bolt. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I was so dense and I didn't see all these things. And it was, I don't know why I had a cocktail napkin in front of me. I was probably drinking heavily at the time. So
a lot of that going around these days too.
Yeah, exactly. So I had the cocktail napkin and I remember drawing this. I wish I still had it, but I remember it well. I said, okay, we're going to create the leading online educational resource for content marketing. I put a circle around that. I said a circle around, we were going to create the leading and largest print magazine dedicated to content marketing. And they said we were going to create the largest international event for content marketing. So this is at the end of 2009. We're not called Content Marketing Institute at this point. It's still John to 42. And I basically, that was the visual business model. And I went back to my wife and I said, I think this is it. Like, I think this, and she's like, you're crazy. You're really crazy. But thank God she loved me and she believed in me. And from that moment on, pivoted the business model and said, okay, we're going with this thing called Content Marketing Institute. And we ended up launching Content Marketing Institute in May of 2010. And it just took off from there. I ended up luckily pre-funding it. We went out to partners that just knew me and I just staked my reputation on it. I said, would you be a benefactor and pay $10,000? Because we didn't have any, we were on bologna and ramen noodles at that point.
Oh, wow.
And so we're like, okay, what are we going to do? And 2 small kids, and the kids at that time were 3 and 6. So we're like, okay, what do we do? But they had 5 wonderful companies, gave us in total about $50,000 to make it through. New development, new website. Content Marketing Institute launches May of 2010. Then Chief Content Officer Magazine launches in 2011. And Content Marketing World launches in September of 2011. We were holding it in Cleveland and we were hoping, I'm like, can we get 100 people? Like, can we get 100 people to come to Cleveland for an event called Content Marketing World? And believe it or not, and you could see the momentum at the beginning of 2011 start to happen. And then going out there for the opening introduction and keynote at Content Marketing World, there were 660 people.
Hi. Good morning. All right, we're going to get right to it.
That's the moment, because right before I went out on stage, that's the first moment in September 2011 that I said, oh my God, I think this thing is going to work. And my wife and I are literally crying backstage. David Meerman Scott, if you know David, prolific marketing speaker, he's standing next to us watching us hug and cry because he's the keynote after me.
Joe Pulizzi took the 2008 recession and pivoted to something bigger and better, and ultimately much, much more successful. So coming up after the break...
What's great is you just take your expectations for the next 2 years down to nothing and build the business. Build an audience, right?
How can marketers and comms professionals apply lessons from the founding of Content Marketing Institute to the very real but very different crisis that we face now in 2025? That's all coming up in a moment here on Lead Balloon.
What does every USAA member have in common? Family. We're one big family who supports the military community and their eligible families. And if you, your parent, or spouse served, you could join our family and save big on auto insurance. Visit USAA.com/join today to check your eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
So earlier this year, a client cheekily suggested a drinking game for 2025. Anytime someone in a business context uses the word uncertainty, take a shot. And I am pleased to report that I did not agree to those terms, because in the world of business, this year has been an absolute roller coaster. If the roller coaster was in fact rocket powered and the tracks were still being built as we launched. This uncertainty has made a lot of companies pull back on their content marketing and thought leadership efforts. But here's the thing, when everyone else clams up, your voice carries that much farther. And in that sense, there has never been a better time to launch a podcast initiative for your brand. Certainly, we know that here at PodCamp Media, where we help global brands like yours launch B2B and B2C podcasts that work. And we know, too, that fortune favors the bold in times like these. So visit podcampmedia.com and let's get started today telling your brand story.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
This is Lead Balloon, and I'm Dusty Weiss. Joe Pulizzi launched a new business in 2007, only to watch it get smashed to pieces by the Great Recession of 2008. But where a lot of other people had to pack up shop and close their businesses, he dug in, pivoted, and single-handedly changed the marketing world.
It's wild to me because having recently launched a business myself, you have a lot of difficult conversations going into it. You have conversations with potential funders and pitching to your first clients, and all of that is like an incredible stress level. But then the conversation that stands out most vividly to me, too, is the conversation that I had with my wife, where I turned to her and said, hey, you know that really, really good, stable job that I'm lucky to have? I want to leave that in the dust and stake our family's fortunes on this cockamamie idea that I've been rolling around in my head for a little while. And maybe it was the Palomas and the Mexican sunshine talking, but she just turned to me and said, I trust you explicitly. If this is a thing you feel like you have to do, go out and do it. And it's funny because it sounds like our wives have a lot in common with each other. Yep. They're both married to loud men who enjoy talking a lot. And both of them are completely and totally reticent to get on the microphone themselves.
So yeah, we're so shy.
As I've learned about your
wife.
We're
so shy to do this kind of stuff. Exactly.
But just looking back at it, do you think you'd be in the same position that you are right now if you hadn't had the complete and unwavering support of your wife over the years?
No, actually, and it's funny, I don't even know if and when I would have started a business. And entrepreneurs know this, right? There's no good time to start a business. You can always find an excuse. I'm like, it's 2006 and I'm like, the kids are 2 and 4. This is a horrible time. You know, we've got a mortgage on the house. We just bought a house. Why would we take a risk like that? And of course, hindsight, the riskiest thing to do, and now in my opinion, as being an entrepreneur, is to stay with a company where you have no control. At least, we have control to make some of our horrible decisions that we've made, but without her support, that wouldn't have happened. And the other thing is when we were going into debt and taking out more credit cards and things like that, she could have easily said, no, but we gave it a shot.
Yeah. Pull the ripcord. We're done.
We gave it a shot. And like I said, you're right. We did give it a shot, and I'll always have that. And now I can go back and find another job. But she said, our little, we have a saying in our house and in our family, it's go big or go home. And she said that, go big or go home. What are we doing here? Are we going big? Then go big. Give everything you've got to it. No, we're not leaving. No regrets.
When you're counting on your business to keep a roof over your family's head, that's a ton of pressure. So, supportive spouse. You mentioned the cocktails and the cocktail napkins, but how else do you deal with that pressure? Like, how do you just keep from letting the despair and uncertainty overwhelm you at times?
I think what really, I was nervous all the time. I was a wreck. I'm lucky I didn't have a heart attack or something, because I was always a wreck, wondering what I was doing. But I think you have to have this belief in yourself and belief in the idea that is unreal. You know it's silly, right? But you have to go all in and you have to believe it. And I think what we probably did better than most is we really focused on a niche that I believe we could be the leading expert in the world. We really did say, okay, well, what can we do better than anyone else? I said, well, we can do this blog thing. We can do daily how-to articles better than anyone else. And what was great, and you talk about times like today, there are some wonderful journalists, writers, and content creators available.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, they've gotten let go by media. Again, there's another huge round of layoffs that have happened in media companies. The great content creators are available. We did that when I went to the mastheads of some of these magazines, and I reached out to people. I was like, hey, would you help me with this research project? People that we actually had no right in working with. And that's what's exciting. First of all, what's going on right now is terrible all the way around. I have no good things to say about that, but it is the greatest time ever right now to launch a business and to grow a business, because you've got so many people battening down the hatches, and we kept pushing through. And that's what we did. I mean, we focused on this niche, that content marketing, which nobody was talking about. Nobody called it content marketing. So we sort of renamed it that thing, and like it always had been that way. Just say, okay, we're going to call it content marketing right now, because we were targeting marketing people, and marketing people don't listen to anything that's called custom media or custom publishing. They're already falling asleep. If you say, you doing custom publishing? They're sleeping. If you have to call whatever you're doing marketing for marketing people to pay attention. Direct marketing, search marketing, social media marketing, content marketing, same thing. It's very simplistic, but it works. So we were focusing on this thing called content marketing and doing this blog better than hopefully anybody else out there. And all the other media companies and marketing media companies in our area, they were just holding on for dear life because they had to. And I get it. But if you have the resilience and you can say, look, it's going to be lean for the next couple of years, but we can come out of this stronger and better than it. And that's what happened. So by 2010, that's when we made that formal pivot to Content Marketing Institute. It just took off right away, because the whole time we'd been investing in our audience and building this audience, and everyone else we reached out to in 2008, 2009 and said, hey, this content marketing is a thing. Are you going to cover it? No, we're not covered. We can't cover anything new. We just let our marketing writer go. We're not going to do an event or no new events. So we can't do a partner with you on an event in content marketing or whatever ideas we had, research project, all kinds of stuff. So, we just did our thing, and then 2010 came and it took off. So
yeah, the Paul Harvey rest of the story is Content Marketing Institute blew up. You wrote 3 best-selling books. Content Marketing World, the conference, also blew up and became a major destination for anybody that works in this space. And then the This Old Marketing podcast became a huge success with millions of listens too. So you basically redefined an entire sector of marketing practices overnight. So while personal results might vary, looking at this new recession here, what do you see that's similar to the recession that we went through back then, and what's different? And what do marketing entrepreneurs need to do to come out of this recession with at least a fraction of that success?
What's great is you just take your expectations for the next 2 years down to nothing and build the business. Build an audience, right? What's your niche? What are you going to do to build that audience? Is it going to be a podcast? Is it going to be an Instagram series? Is it going to be a blog? What is it? an email newsletter to really build that audience so that you become the leading expert in something, so that when people are ready to buy, they trust you, they know you, they're going to be loyal to you, and they'll buy from you. Perfect timing. So
I was actually just the other day. I was talking to someone who's been planning to make the leap to full-time entrepreneur. He was recently laid off, but he's got a good business plan. He's looking at the podcast space, and he says that he keeps getting hung up on the want ads. Like he does a little bit of work on his business plan, and then he's like, "Ooh, but here's a steady full-time job that I could apply for." And I told him, I get it. I'm a year into this thing, and I still have these like regular crises of confidence. But the question I guess I would have for you is, does that go away? For how long were you tempted back toward the stability of a regular job before you finally just embraced, you know what? I'm the CEO. I'm an entrepreneur.
You'll always be tempted. I was always I don't know. I don't want to speak for everyone. I was always tempted. I was tempted until the September 2011 when I came out on stage for Content Marketing World.
Yeah.
You always doubt yourself. It's a natural human thing that you don't feel that you can do it. It's going to be there. You're always going to want to focus on, is there a plan B out there? And all entrepreneurs are crazy in some way. And you just have to look at that and say, no, I'm going to be one of those crazy ones that make it. We're going to push through. So you just have to look at those want ads and laugh and say, yeah, there's some other person that's going to take that job, and good for them. Because I'm going to go back to work and work my butt off 12, 14 hours a day. I'm going to be thinking about it all the time so that in 5 years or 7 years, I have the financial freedom to do anything I want to.
Let's say hypothetically, you were living in a world in 2006, 2007, where due to effective oversight and responsible banking practices, there was no housing bubble and the economy didn't grind to a halt. How would your life be different right now?
If the Great Recession didn't happen, I don't know if Content Marketing Institute would have existed, because it was growing so fast. There was such an opportunity there. I think the other media companies, if they would have been financially sound, would have picked up on it. We had no right in launching a Content Marketing World. We had no right in launching the daily how-to blog. Somebody else should have done that. And then here we are, little old us. We just came around. Nobody was investing in that area, and we were able to take a leadership position. So that's what, kind of back to the beginning. That's what's exciting from a business standpoint about what's going on now, because you're going to have a number of individuals, entrepreneurs, and small businesses be able to do amazing things because everyone else is battening down the hatches, or unfortunately going out of business, or focusing on their core audience and core area of expertise, when you can come in and do something great to an underserved audience. So to be honest, I might be working at a publishing company, which is so sad. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I don't know if I would have been an entrepreneur and
it's not your jam. It's not for you.
I probably would have went back. I probably would have went back and got a job somewhere. So I don't know. It's crazy.
This has been an awesome conversation, and again, I just hope a comfort to a lot of people facing a lot of uncertainty right now. I appreciate your taking the time. Joe Pulizzi, the godfather of content marketing, founder of Content Marketing Institute. You wrote Killing Marketing, Content Inc., Epic Content Marketing, and now most recently the marketing-themed murder mystery, The Will to Die. Thanks for joining us on Lead Balloon.
Thanks, Dusty. Anytime, my friend.
And thank you for tuning in. When I first had this conversation with Joe Pulizzi back in May of 2020, I didn't know then that in 5 years, I'd be sitting in a place like this, in a podcast studio that I got to build for my own company. I didn't know that even before the end of the year, I would sign 2 new clients and hire my first full-time employee. I didn't know that I would eventually clear more than $1 million in sales. But I stopped panicking. I stopped checking the want ads for a little bit, at least, and I trusted the content marketing process. A process where, if you provide value, build an audience, and serve them, when the time comes that they need your services, they will call you first. So now that things look grim once again, remember, when everyone else goes quiet, your voice carries that much further. I hope that lesson is helpful to you in whatever your situation is right now. Here on Lead Balloon, I like to tell folks that we're like Freakonomics for PR and marketing professionals, so we hope to see you back here in this feed again sometime soon. Follow us on your favorite podcast app or check out PodCamp Media on YouTube. Lead Balloon is produced by PodCamp Media, where we do provide branded podcast production solutions for businesses. Our podcast studios are located in the heart of beautiful downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We work with brands all over North America to help them launch and build podcasts that work. Check out our website, podcampmedia.com. Music for this episode by Shane Becker. And until the next time, folks, thanks for listening. I'm Dusty Weiss.